Chicago, this is Bruce DuMont with our Beyond the Beltway analysis of national politics, featuring occasional injections of rumor and innuendo, all offered up by our panel of political insiders, pundits, power brokers, public servants, professors, and most importantly, plain-speaking Americans from coast to coast. Tonight, featuring commentary by Democrat Peter Hanna, Republican Dr. Jay Kinzler, Democrat Dave Lundy, and Republican Judith Sherwin. Our program tonight coming to you from the National Radio Hall of Fame studios, specifically the Paul and Angel Harvey studios at the Museum of Broadcast Communications in downtown Chicago. Nice to have you with us this evening. But I want to begin with the House of Representatives is going to soon decide whether or not they're proceeding with articles of impeachment, which start next week. And obviously the Senate will then go to a trial, if indeed a trial is warranted. But then the American people are ultimately going to vote next November, unless maybe the president is gone by then. Okay. Dr. Jay Kinzler joins us. Doctor, your reaction and answer to the same question. Who's winning this? You're out there talking to people every day when you're campaigning.
When I refer to the other side, I'm going to refer to the left rather than Democrats, because what I'm finding, I've been out campaigning, signatures, probably talked to 5,000 people over the last 6 weeks on train station platforms, Oktoberfest, church groups, etc. And there's a lot of Democrats that like our president, and I'm talking about firefighters, police, many of the people in the trades unions. And, the left has decided the day after the election that they didn't want Trump as their president. And now they've just been kind of fabricating things ever since then to try to delegitimize him, or basically try to find some crime to say or saddle him with so that they can get him out of office.
So these Democrats are buying into that. Now, Peter, point, Jay?
No,
bringing in the again, law professors?
I'm kind of more of a common sense, basic kind of transplant surgeon. I see physiology, I see science, I see facts. The Ukraine, which is known as a very corrupt country, has already received $1.5 billion in aid from us, and this was going to be a release of an additional $400 million. If you're in charge of that money, i.e. President Trump was in charge of releasing that money, you want to make darn sure that that money's being spent appropriately and wisely and not being squandered away. So I applaud him, and if for instance, I am fortunate enough to get into this to Congress, I would basically look into how those monies are being spent.
But what about Dr. Jay Kinzler?
Hi, so my name's Dr. Gordon J. Kinzler. I'm a colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve. Joined at the ripe old age of 49. And my day job is I'm a kidney transplant surgeon. I work at Elmhurst Hospital as a urologist, running for Congressional District 6 for all those out there in Congressional District 6.
And you're running in a primary to retire Sean Casten, a Democratic member of Congress.
Yes, turn it red again.
Okay. A concern that a lot of people have is that if Donald Trump gets away with this, and you define whatever this is, but if he gets away with it, it's going to just make him stronger, and it sends a signal about future presidents, and basically is, if they don't get Donald Trump on this, are they ever going to get any president on anything? Well, Dr. Kinzler, I want to get your reaction to because there's many people who think that's why Donald Trump has to be punished, impeached, and removed from office.
See, I look at it from a different perspective. If we allow any partisan group, either Republicans or Democrats, to impeach a president because they don't personally like him or because they're unhappy with election results or they don't like his policies, I think what we're going to have is just a continuation of what we've had with this Congress for the last 2 years, which is they aren't getting the work of the people done. They're constantly bickering, fighting, having these hearings. I mean, remember, most of these impeachment hearings started behind closed doors with these private tribunals. They were sequestered away in some basement room. I just finished reading Solzhenitsyn's The Gulag, and that's much of how the Soviet Union got its start, with these private tribunals and now not having transparency.
So you're worried. DuMont back. Let's go to Steve in Oswego, Illinois. Go ahead. You're on the air, Steve.
Thank you, Bruce. I've caught your show 20-some years ago and have been listening since.
Well, thank you very much for your loyalty.
Yeah, it was a Birmingham station that I tuned into. Anyway, before I get to my point, Dr. Kinzler,
Yeah.
I really hope that you win the primary. I don't live in your district, but I know who your opponent is, and you don't have to be toxic to be conservative. But that aside,
Thanks, Steve.
Jonathan Turley is the one man with the sense in the room. He says, yes, if Trump did what you say he did, then yes, it's impeachable. However, you haven't proved it. So what happens if they go through the impeachment process and the Senate does not convict, and then something comes out that proves that he committed an impeachable crime? You're going to impeach him again? Thank you.
What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, you could.
I don't think you would impeach him again for this. I think more evidence is coming out and will continue to come out. Sooner or later, Bolton's going to speak. And when Bolton speaks, he's going to back up the notion that Donald Trump ordered this and that it was what he referred to as Rudy's drug deal.
He's not speaking for the book.
Bolton's got an axe to grind.
How do you know that? Because numerous people said he called it Rudy's drug deal.
Are you, Judy?
Yes.
Are you worried if John Bolton says he's going to testify? Are you worried about that?
No, absolutely not.
Step to the mic.
Absolutely not. No.
Doctor, are you worried about it?
No,
Disgruntled employee?
Again, most of the people so far that have testified against our president have an axe to grind against him, and that's why this has been just highly partisan. You guys were talking before about now that more's coming out. Well, I mean, every day the general public, it's like propaganda, it's like brainwashing, and they just hear Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. But most of the American people are starting to see this for what it is. It's very partisan, and it's very much that they don't want to legitimize the election and the president, and they want to reverse that. And I think people are getting downright upset about it. And I think if the Democrats were doing this to help stop Trump or help stop his reelection, they're just sadly mistaken, and this is going to backfire in a huge way. And, polls, but just the common guy you talk to on the street is starting to see this for what it is. I mean, when you talk to people in Washington or people, in these academic centers, you can kind of just keep convincing yourself of all these things. But the bottom line is, look at the basics. He was getting $400 million of taxpayer money to go to a foreign country. And I, for one, want to make sure that that money's being used wisely, and I want to make sure that it's not being squandered or given to somebody's relative that's going to somehow benefit somebody down the road. And that's what it's come down to.
But
Except
that,
It's not good for our country. It's not good for when our president goes abroad.
To have
deal with
experts?
North Korea, to deal with China, to deal with our NATO allies, to constantly having this Democrat Congress badgering and belittling and, putting them through this. It's not good for America. And I think Americans are starting to see that.
In the first, all those that testified, by the way, all those Democrat witnesses who testified, they all said that Donald Trump deserves the credit for giving them.
Right.
I didn't say anything to the
that.
I didn't say anything to the contrary.
Say one thing.
Yes, Doctor.
So first of all, what I have to say is I have to do a waiver and everything. I'm still active in the Army Reserve, so anything I say does not reflect the opinion of the Department of Defense or the Department of Army.
We will not hold it against you.
Well, I have to make sure anyone listening also knows that. These are my own personal opinions, but I've served under 3 presidents, Bush, Obama, and now Trump. And I can tell you, as far as who has their back, I've never seen the morale of the troops as high as it is now under Trump for a multitude of reasons, one of which he actually gave our men and women in the service raises. In the 8 years Obama was president, they did not get one raise. I used to be the president of the Park District of Glen Ellen. We would give people raises 3 to 4% per year. Our military, and I'm not talking about guys that have went for 1 or 2 deployments to places like Afghanistan or Iraq, but some of them 5 or 6. They have 2 or 3, 4 kids, a wife. They couldn't hardly afford with their salaries during the Obama years to stay in the military. In fact, we lost a lot of great warriors because they had to get out of the military to find another job. So he has their back, and that's what I have experienced personally.
No disagreement with you on the raises. I know that it was an issue under Bush. It was an issue under Obama. I'm glad they got raises. But I'm not sure that your fellow soldiers in Syria, given what he did in Syria by withdrawing the way he did, would agree with you about the morale.
If my son or my nephews are still in, I'm glad he gets them out of places where they're not needed or where there's not a clear need for American presence, because that's what a president has to decide. It's a huge decision to send somebody in harm's way.
Got to pause.
First of all, on behalf of Bruce, the show, and my panel members, because we talked about it break, our condolences, prayers, and thoughts go out to the family of our servicemen that go. When you send your son or daughter into the military, especially when they're garrisoned at home base, the last thing you would expect is to lose them and go through this tragedy. So our thoughts and prayers are with the family. After saying that, this is something that needs to thoroughly be investigated. I mean, this should be intolerable for us as a nation to stand and let this happen. And this isn't the first time. Going back to June of 2009 at Little Rock, we had one recruiting officer killed by a jihadist, by an Islamic terrorist. Back in 11 of 2009, we had the Major Hassan, another terrorist, actually killed 13.
Should we stop the practice of training foreign fighters? Because obviously, if our goal, and certainly it has been with Saudi Arabia, we want to sell them lots of stuff.
Right.
They are a customer.
Right.
If you buy a new airplane, you have to fly the airplane, so I don't think there's any meaningful way that you really stop training foreign nationals to
you have to look
military
at
people.
the risk versus the benefits.
Well, you've
going
got to
on. We
monitor
had
them, though.
Probably
had
need
four
to vet them a
Marines
little
killed
better.
at Chattanooga. Now we've got Pensacola. We need to have vetting, and we need to have better vetting of people, particularly who we let in to any military installations, because we know there is a deep-seated hatred for us, for our way of life. We would not be able to sit at a conference like this in a radio and broadcast these views and talk about,
Right.
what we think of our president or what we think about our congressional leaders. We wouldn't probably survive, when we walked out the door. So I mean, for all the problems we have, we still have a great system. We need to protect it. And any enemy of the United States that wants to take that away or infringe on that needs to be met with the full force of our military in America.
I think everybody agrees. Everybody agrees with, I think, all your points, Doctor.
Absolutely.
Okay. Roger in Austin, Texas on KLBJ. Go ahead, Roger.
Good evening. Best to you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Roger.
Democrats keep repeating their overwhelming evidence talking point, and now even undisputed, falsely implying that Trump's refusal to lend them any credibility in their efforts is somehow agreement. Democrats' evidence is largely hearsay and opinion, and it's underwhelming. Really, not overwhelming. It's underwhelming. If this thing gets to the Senate, it's all over for the Democrats, and they're going to have to live with the fallout of their partisan hatred of Trump. They've hollered impeachment for 3 years, and their credibility on this is zero. Democrats are driving a deep rift in our national leadership, and that promises far greater negative consequence than anything related to Ukraine or those petty attacks on emoluments and all that other nonsense against Trump. They've succeeded in lowering the bar to partisan attack on future presidents, and we're going to be living with this for a long time.
Right.
Roger, thanks for calling. You were right on with your comments. I think the Democrats are finding that they're hurting America, not helping.
Yes, I
Jay
agree.
Gordon
Thank you so
Kinzler
much.
has been with us this evening. He is a Republican. He wants to go to the United States House of Representatives.